Just as the virus itself replicated in the respiratory tracts of the soldiers, the scene at Camp Funston would be replicated at military bases around the globe in the coming months, fueled by the steady flow of soldiers across the United States and onto the European front lines. American troops brought the virus to the military port at Brest on the northwest edge of Brittany in France. The virus then erupted in Paris in late April. Italy soon followed. On May 22nd, the Madrid newspaper El Sol reported that a sickness which has not yet been diagnosed by doctors was ravaging the garrisons of Madrid. By the end of May, the virus was in Bombay, Shanghai, and New Zealand. The strain of H1N1 that encircled the globe in the spring of 1918 spread at an alarming rate compared to most influenzas. It passed readily from person to person and successfully set off chains of cell rupture in the lungs of many of those people. But it wasn't particularly lethal. The flu's ability to race around the world in such a short amount of time, all those self-replicating spheres and all those lungs, was formidable. And yet many of those lungs recovered from the attack. In the technical language, the strain displayed a high morbidity rate combined with a more modest rate of mortality. It made copies of itself with fearsome skill, but it tended to let its hosts survive the encounter. The strain of H1N1 that erupted in the fall of 1918 would not be so generous. To this day, scientists debate why the second wave of the Spanish flu in 1918 proved to be so much more virulent than the virus that first emerged in the spring. Some argue that the two waves were propelled by different variations of H1N1. Others believe that the two different strains encountered each other in Europe and somehow combined into a new, more lethal variant. Others believe that the initial wave was weaker because the virus had only recently jumped from animal hosts to human ones and required a number of months to properly adapt to its new habitat in the respiratory tracts of Homo sapiens. Whatever the underlying cause, the wake of death left behind in the second wave was staggering. In the United States, the new threat first became apparent at Camp Devens, an overcrowded military base on the outskirts of Boston. By the third week of September, 1/5 of the camp's population had contracted influenza, a morbidity rate that exceeded that of the H1N1 outbreak at Camp Funston. But it was the mortality rate that shocked the medical staff at Camp Devens. "It is only a matter of a few hours, then, until death comes," one of the Army physicians wrote. It is horrible. One can stand it to see 1, 2, or 20 men die, but to see these poor devils dropping like flies, we've been averaging about 100 deaths per day. Pneumonia means in about all cases death. We have lost an outrageous number of nurses and doctors, and the little town of Ayr is a sight. It takes special trains to carry away the dead. For several days there were no coffins, and the bodies piled up something fierce. It beats any sight they ever had in France after a battle. An extra long barracks has been vacated for the use of the morgue, and it would make any man sit up and take notice to walk down the long lines of dead soldiers, all dressed and laid out in double rows. The devastation at Camp Devens would soon be followed by even more catastrophic outbreaks around the world. In the United States, almost 50% of all deaths would be attributable to influenza over the next year. Millions died on the front lines and in military hospitals in Europe. The mortality rate for those infected in parts of India approached 20%, an order of magnitude more lethal than the first wave virus had been. Today, the best estimates suggest that as many as 100 million people died of influenza during the outbreak around the world. John Barry, author of the canonical account of the outbreak, The Great Influenza, puts that number in context. Given the world's population in 1918 of approximately 1.8 billion, the upper estimate would mean that in 2 years, and with most of the deaths coming in a horrendous 12 weeks in the fall of 1918, in excess of 5% of the people in the world died. Mortality reports revealed another disturbing element of the pandemic. The H1N1 outbreak of 1918 to 1919 was unusually lethal among young adults, normally the most resilient cohort in ordinary flu seasons. In the United States, as Barry notes, the single greatest number of deaths occurred in men and women aged 25.